Have you ever wondered what it is about reaching for our dreams that feels so hard and requires so much of our own healing? Are you curious about how moving towards your own creativity might heal what's making you feel stuck? Well, that is why we made this show. I'll be having conversations with emotional health experts as well as artists, musicians, and creatives, all with the intention of resourcing and inspiring you to uncover your true creative self. I'm Courtney Lancaster, and this is the Heal Create Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the Heal Create Podcast. I am so happy you're here. I've been working on this podcast for literally a year for lots of different reasons, but technically I think we have everything in place. We've been recording lots of different episodes and conversations and interviews, and it's just time. It's time to release this into the world. So if you're on the other side, I just really want to thank you for joining me. It's really exciting to think that there's anybody that could share in this content and this passion that I have. So I wanted to spend this episode and just give a little bit of background about who I am and what we're doing and what even this is. And I will start with the last question first. This is a podcast all about the relationship between the healing journey and the creative process. So what I wanted to set out to do was alternate between conversations with artists in their field, singers, songwriters, actors, poets, writers, even entrepreneurs, explaining what they do and why they do it in hopes of inspiring you to kind of wake up some of the dreams inside of you, and alternating that with conversations with people in the healing professions, doctors and therapists and life coaches, and anyone that might be able to give insight and resource and encouragement to those that find themselves stuck moving towards their dreams. Creativity is the fruit of health. Creativity comes from a body that feels deeply safe, from a person that feels really connected and has an internal sense of safety. And the reason why I feel like that's so important to share is because I know what that feels like. I also know what it feels like to not feel that internal sense of safety, to feel so lit up in certain moments by things you want to do, but feel so stuck in moving towards them. And so I thought I'd share a little bit about just kind of how I got here and what led me to this place. But it all started about 8 years ago. I found myself in the emergency room for panic attacks after my second son was born. And, in hindsight, there were red flags probably my whole life. But to my knowledge at that point, I hadn't struggled with anxiety or panic. It all came up in a very, very dramatic way. And it was really just the beginning of life in a different way that I had known before. Gosh, if you know, you know, right? And from that point, it has been such a long and very painful road in certain seasons of finding the support that I needed, working with different therapists, reading a ton of books, joining different groups, trying to figure out, and then trying to suppress it and pretend like it never happened. And that didn't really work out. And eventually finding my way to the things that really worked for me and that I now have the opportunity of sharing with my own clients. So a few years back, I got to work with an intern for a brilliant counselor who created something called the compassion method. It's an emotional healing modality that I now offer as a consultant. Also as a trauma-informed consultant, I'm able to help people with a lot of the same issues that I myself faced in my own healing journey. And I've been doing that for the last few years, but I've taken a great interest in helping creatives and helping people like me, people that would consider themselves or would hope to consider themselves either an artist or a songwriter, a musician, and feeling stuck in moving towards that. I started to notice in 2020, a lot of the artists that I follow were posting things about how the pace that they had gone up to that point wasn't sustainable for them. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but there were a lot of people after 2020 that kind of jumped right back into touring or writing and crashed and burned because they couldn't go back to that pace that they had maintained before because it wasn't healthy. What I noticed for myself was when I was going through my healing journey, I was also a worship leader on pretty big stages, and I would override my own nervous system in order to get on the stage and sing. And that's what I thought I was supposed to do. I thought you were supposed to sacrifice everything for your dream, for your calling. What I was surprised to find, however, was that I had increasing anxiety around singing, the thing that I loved the most. And that was so frustrating and scary for me because it became harder and harder for me to do the thing that I loved. And it was kind of something I put in my back pocket to figure out when I gained sustainable health myself. And then coming back to 2020, when I started to notice these artists that were talking about the same thing, and then even like major artists that were canceling their world tours, or coming out with books and documentaries about their real issues with mental health and how they wanted to even, give up some of the things that they had built. I became incredibly passionate about supporting these artists, supporting people that find themselves with a really complicated relationship with the thing that they love the most, their art. And that's where this podcast was born. I wanted to share a lot of what I've learned about how to create that internal sense of safety, how to regulate your nervous system, or even if you're more at the beginning of your journey, where to even start when it comes to healing your trauma or healing after loss or grief in order to do what's necessary to eventually come back into your creative state, your flow state, so to speak. So this podcast is just kind of my passion, all recorded out for you guys. Like I said, we'll be having conversations with people in the healing profession as well as art in their fields. And my goal is just to inspire and encourage you. I remember hearing Jedediah Jenkins, who's a really powerful writer, talk about how all the work he's ever done with his own writing has just been him writing to his younger self. And I feel like that's really what this podcast is. And really anything that I create, it's me thinking about myself about 7 or 8 years ago at the very beginning, feeling like I was losing everything, feeling like my dreams were so far away. It could have been that they had never existed in the first place. And being on the other side of that and building capacity to move towards what lights me up is something that I want to share with as many people as possible. So while I'm doing this podcast, I will also be just in my personal life, writing and recording and in the studio, releasing music as well, which is incredibly vulnerable and really exciting and really aligned. So, at least for me. And so, I'll be sharing some of my behind the scenes of that process as well, which I don't know how interesting that is to anyone. I'm fascinated with behind the scenes of artists and movies and stage. And I think I love seeing behind the scenes of really famous, prolific, successful artists. But I don't know that I've ever heard stories of people just starting from scratch. And that's really what I've done. In 2020, I decided that I wanted to record my own music and signed a contract with this really great producer and thought I was good to go. And it has been such a slow process for me. Being a mom, for sure, but there are a lot of reasons and excuses I could give for why it's been a slow process for me. But the real truth is that it's been a slow uphill climb for building capacity again after going through everything that I've been through. And I know that I'm not alone in that and certainly not ashamed in that. There are times that I wish I could just, pump out content as fast as I think of it. But my body that has brilliantly protected me for so many years because of everything that has transpired internally, it's not quite sure that it's safe to move forward. So slowly we go. And those are some of the things that I want to share with you guys as well. So anyways, I'm really excited for this. As you can tell, I've probably said that like 10 times and I will probably say it on every single episode because I don't know. I genuinely am. You're going to meet some of my friends. You're going to meet some of the people that I look up to. You're going to meet some people that I'm like starstruck by. And, I'm excited to share all of these conversations with you guys, as well as just things that I've personally learned as I've been on this journey too. So that's it. That is the Heal Create podcast. I want to say a special thanks to my assistant, Emily, for editing all of these and being absolutely brilliant. And also to my friend Gable Price with his band, Gable Price and Friends, who generously allowed me to use their song in the intro of this podcast. So check them out on Spotify. You can find me at Courtney Lan on Instagram or CourtneyLancaster.co. Yeah, I think that's everything. I'm really excited to share this journey with you guys, and I'll see you on the next episode.